Hey, this is Anton with Best Is Now, helping men rediscover their vitality at any age. A lot of you have been asking how I got into this food and fitness thing, the vitality thing in the first place. And I made a video yesterday in typical Anton style. It was like 20 minutes long. So this is the mercy version to try to keep this as short as possible. And maybe you'll watch the longer version because it actually has some really interesting points in it, especially toward the end. But in a nutshell, when I got to be around 50, I started to have all the symptoms that people think are typical about men aging. You know, my eyes were going bad, I was getting heavier, my prostate was enlarging, my back went out, my energy was low, and whenever I would go to the doctors with these problems, they'd go, "Oh, just get used to that. You know, this is typical for a man your age." I'd be going, "Oh my God, please no." And at that time, I had just started a family, and my wife and I were living in Los Angeles in a loft, and I was working in the movies, doing sets for movies and TV and high-end clients. And Leslie was working in the fashion industry. And we took our one-year-old daughter home to Aspen to see her grandma, and we learned that my mother had stage 4 cancer. So we decided to move to Colorado and be around my mom, gave up all that stuff in LA, and in about a year's time, everything kind of went to hell. My mother passed away, the dog passed away, the cat passed away, 22 friends passed away that same year. We suddenly had the estate to deal with, to manage. It was like winning the lottery in reverse. We had this huge inheritance tax we had to somehow come up with in a year's time. We had to learn a lot about business very quickly, how to manage things so that we could survive that and thrive. You know, we have been doing quite well for the last 18 years, but it took a lot of work and it was very stressful to learn and figure all this out. So with all the stuff that was going wrong with my body from, as they said, because I was aging, I had all this stress, and it evolved into acute anxiety disorder. And by acute, I mean I could not go up a flight of stairs without thinking I was going to have a heart attack. And I could hardly walk to the end of our driveway. I couldn't even go to the store. You know, I was like grounded at the ranch. It was horrible. It was a nightmare. And this was day and night. My wonderful kids did not have the father that I did. You know, I couldn't be there for my kids the way my parents were. My parents were skiers, were athletes. We grew up with that, and my kids weren't getting that. There we were living in a beautiful part of Colorado, and I couldn't be there for my kids. And one day a friend said to me, you know, when I would go to the doctors, they would look at me and they go, "Okay, you know, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not having a heart attack. You're actually in really great physical condition. Is there any stress in your life?" And I go, "Oh my God, where do I begin?" You know, and a friend of mine said, "I know this holistic doctor. Why don't you go see him?" And that was the turning point for me. I went to see this doctor. He said, "You know, you might think what I'm doing here is voodoo." And I said, "You know, I don't care what you do because this nightmare has to end." And so this man changed my life. He turned it around, and one of the fundamental ways he did that was through food and through energy. I engaged a man who was working at the Aspen Club who works with celebrity clients like Martina Navratilova and Lance Armstrong, you know, demanding clients that need him to perform well. And he and I devised a way to work on how my body was, you know, my body would trigger the stresses of working out would trigger these anxiety attacks, anything like that. So we would work out on kind of a reassociation in my mind of that. There's a sports psychiatrist who worked there who also worked with all those high-end clients, and she worked on my brain. And so I had this great team of people working, you know, with me to get me back together. Riggs on my body, Julie on my brain, and Lee on my energy and on my food. And it turned my life around. And so in the other longer video, I go into a little more detail about that, but truly food and fitness are such a big part of, you know, it's not just looking pretty, I wanted to be there for my kids, for my family. when you are strong in yourself, you have something to give those around you. When you're failing, you can't be there for the ones you love, and you can't really contribute to the world at large. So this turned my life around. In my 50s, I was a disaster. And in my 60s, I'm thriving. I'm more fit. I'm more energetic. I love my life. It's crazy how my life is right now. I'm 64, and it's the best years of my life. And I want to share this with you, and that's what we're going to be doing here on the 60-Day Vitality Challenge. I hope that you engage and stick with all this. Come into it with a beginner's mind, because there will be epiphanies in there for you that will change your life. And 2 months from now, when it's time to head to the beach, your life will be different. You will be different, you know. So anyway, this is the short version. Okay, so this is Anton with Best Is Now. Remember, be good to those you love and be good to yourself.